Okay. Hi, I'm Kyle, and welcome back to Bedtime Verses with Kyle. Just a little poetry to help you get ready for bed. Tonight we have a new poet, Thomas Carew, whose deaths are maybe 1595 to 1640. Dang, another pretty young one. And he's writing the epitaph of John Donne that we covered a few weeks ago. And I'll probably revisit because I'm not sure we read his best work, actually. On the Death of Donne, Poor John Donne by Thomas Carew. The Muse's garden, with pedantic weeds o'erspread, was purged by thee, the lazy seeds of servile imitation thrown away, and fresh invention planted. Thou didst pay the debts of our penurious bankrupt age, licentious thefts that make poetic rage, a mimic fury, when our souls must be possessed, or with Anacreon's ecstasy, or Pindar's not their own, the subtle cheat of sly exchanges, and the juggling feat of two-edged words, or whatsoever wrong by ours was done the Greek or Latin tongue, thou hast redeemed, and opened us a mine of rich and pregnant fancy, drawn a line of masculine expression, which, had good old Orpheus seen, or all the ancient brood, our superstitious fools admire and hold, their lead more precious than thy burnished gold. Thou hadst been their exchequer, and no more they each in others' dust had raked for ore. See, this is what happens when you go over the line with the sense and you don't fit each thought to a line. It's hard to predict where it's going. So that's a lesson. Don't spill over. Keep it concise so it's easier to read. Okay, Carew, long dead Thomas Carew. Thou shalt yield no precedence but of time, and the blind fate of language, whose tuned chime more charms the outward sense. Yet thou mayst claim from so great disadvantage greater fame, since to the awe of thy imperious wit our stubborn language bends, made only fit with her tough thick-ribbed hoops to gird about thy giant fancy, which had proved too stout for their soft melting phrases. As in time they had the start, so did they call the prime buds of invention many 100 year, and left the rifled fields, besides the fear, to touch their harvest. Yet from those bare lands of what is purely thine, thine only hands, and that thy smallest work, have gleaned more than all those times and tongues could reap before. But thou art gone, and thy strict laws will be too hard for libertines in poetry. They will repeal the goodly exiled train of gods and goddesses, which in thy just reign were banished nobler poems. Now with these, the silent tales of the metamorphoses shall stuff their lines and swell the windy page, till verse, refined by thee in this last age, turn ballad rhyme, or those old idols be adored again with new apostasy. That's pretty good. So basically he's saying Donne was a pretty unique poet. What do they call him? A metaphysical poet. So he strayed from the common imagery, which we've seen throughout this process, all the ancient gods and similar formulations, and Donne really did walk away from that in some sense, helped refine English poetry to grasp it a little more from the clutches of the classical school into something a little more, I'd say, English contemporary and I guess accessible is the word we use now. So what's Carew saying is now that you're gone, everyone's going to go back to having the highfalutin, dusty old garbage that blah, 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 blah. Now, of course, many great poets have written on many things, and some of them happen to be in the Metamorphoses, right? Ovid did a great job. In fact, we should read some of that at some point, too. But it's a lot of aping, and I think he says it in here. So it's like an impersonation, which I've complained about quite a bit. You see the same themes coming, so Donne was quite original in that respect. So that's a pretty good epitaph, or a eulogy. It's a pretty good eulogy. I do wish he had been a little cleaner with his lines. It just makes it easier to read, easier to follow, and then those rhymes just land so much better. Anyway, thank you for joining me for Bedtime Verses with Kyle. You can follow me here, and please subscribe to my YouTube and my website, and there'll be new readings every weekday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night. Sleep tight.